In 2019, Wessex Archaeology dug a test pit in the grounds of Salisbury Museum.
Welcome to this year's Salisbury Museum test pit. In the last 3 years, we've investigated some of the hidden archaeology of the museum building. But most importantly, we've been able to explain our findings direct to the public. In previous years, we dug a hole in the back garden. Then 2 years ago, we found the remains of the long-lost gatehouse. And last year, we found a range of buildings under the lawn here that were knocked down in the early 1800s. This year, we want to get back to the roots of the King's House itself and trace the foundations of this range, which we think are one of the earliest buildings on the site.
As the museum opened its doors, the public began to arrive, which meant that Phil and Lorraine could begin their investigation. After removing the concrete and top layer of soil, the archaeology started to appear.
That's looking good. What we've got here, look, is that concrete which is going down. So that's obviously a lot more modern. So what they've done at some stage is cut a slot across there and underpinned or just put a lot of this concrete against the foundations.
Right.
But looks now as though we're at the bottom of it. So with a bit of luck, we should be in undisturbed archaeology. Lorraine?
Yeah.
What's this?
Traces of archaeological material began to emerge, attracting public interest.
It's a bit of Burwood, I think.
Burwood.
Yeah.
For the benefit of our audience, what is Burwood?
It's a piece of pottery. It's got a bit of glaze on. The colour of the glaze, the colour of the clay underneath tells me that this was the sort of pottery made in East Dorset.
Archaeology is not just about finding hidden objects.
So the fact that we were getting bits of brick and Burwood pottery means that gives us that sort of later date range. We're not in a situation where we're back into the 13th century yet. Hopefully, as we go down deeper, we will get earlier and earlier.
Some finds give us the opportunity for a bit of fun.
Ooh.
It's a flint. It's a struck flint. It's a flake. Is it a walling flake?
Don't say that, Lou. That undermines the value of it. You say, cool. That's really interesting, you say. You keep the negative bits to yourself, okay? She's so negative.
Well, do you think it's prehistoric? I don't.
No.
There you go.
But they don't know that.
What suspense.
This find could tell us about the museum's roof.
Can you see that it's got this pressed on, nice green glaze on, and you can just about make out the ridge from here, so that these would actually have appeared quite nice and colourful. You could have actually seen these from the ground. But again, this is 13th to 14th century. Slightly different colouring to this. It sort of leads me to suspect that this was probably made at the Laverstock kilns just outside Salisbury. Now those kilns were operating in the 13th, early 14th century, making primarily pottery for the city. But they were also making fancy roof tiles like this. And the colour of the clay that they were using, which is quite pale, very characteristic. So this is probably a local product, as I say, 13th and 14th century, so from the early layers of the city.
This is the results of having done 20 years of television, archaeology on the telly. And they always said, get some scrapey shots. Scrapey shots are sort of close-ups of the trowel going in and doing nothing in particular. Occasionally an artefact coming out and tossing it into the finds tray. And do you ever see watch back repeats of Time Team, look out for the scrapey shots.
The finds began to tail off.
What is particularly interesting, and I mean it's this kind of like, as I was saying this morning, I keep constantly saying, it's not what you do find, sometimes it's what you don't find, which is just as important. And the fact is that we're going through this and we are finding absolutely nothing. So in other words, the implication is that we were probably now getting back to a time before any of this was built up. And so the absence of stuff is just as informative as the fact that we've got a load of stuff.
But we've still got a mixture of post-medieval and medieval. This is probably 13th.
That's incredible.
So that's quite nice. And all these tiles are probably also
Work carried on. Finally, a rewarding discovery had been made.
I better see what I've just found.
This is pottery that we find a lot in Salisbury, and it's made at Laverstock, just outside the city. And it's actually known as scratch marked ware because this is what they're doing, they're sort of scratching the surfaces. We're not quite sure why. I think it's probably just to texture it. But this is absolutely the typical medieval pottery that you find in Salisbury from the 13th century through to the 15th century. So that gives us a lovely date for the base of our test pit. Who would have thought it?
How good is that then?
Very good.
Hey?
Very good. There we go.
You know, it's, people say, you know, what's the best find you've ever made? Right now.
Yes.
You know where I'm coming from?
Yes.
This is like ranks with them really. And it's just a little bit of medieval pot, but my God, you folks been standing here most of the day willing us to find a bit. So no, absolutely spot on. I'm really glad that you were able to be there and witness it. And you know we didn't fudge it. You know, we didn't oh, she's going to wash it now. Yeah.
She's going to wash it now.
Looks a bit better with the mud off. There we go. In all its glory.
After a long, hard weekend, the crowd begin to disperse, and the marquee is taken down. Now it's time to sum up.
Okay, Phil, so what do you think we found?
Right at the bottom was where we had that one sherd of medieval pottery.
Yes.
That's the only find we had, and I rather suspect that that is natural river deposits that have incorporated a piece of medieval pottery.
Right.
Our first structural evidence starts here, where we've got the foundations of this building here.
Yeah.
And you can see the bottom courses are quite higgledy-piggledy.
They are.
I suspect that they were laid at a slightly deeper, and I think they're related to this thin band of mortar, which goes all the way down that section and comes round here.
Yes.
And from then up, the foundation is better.
Yeah.
What we can't say is whether or not that foundation is a foundation of this building or whether it's an earlier foundation for a timber frame building, because sadly they've got this concrete on here, which is a response to a damp problem.
Yeah.
Above that mortar is where we had all our makeup layers.
Yeah, all our brick, all our tile, other finds just jumbled in together.
And so really the archaeology, the good archaeology, is from there all the way through.
Yeah, I think it was all worth it, wasn't it?
Oh, it's been absolutely superb. It
Yeah.
really has.
Yeah.
And I mean, the main thing is that we don't just take this hole in isolation, but that we can compare it with what we found in the other test
It's
pits.
all part of the big story.
It's a challenge for next year.
You're on.